Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Will is your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us. Today, we are honored again to meet with our regular on regular person, Tamara Shealey. Tamara, how are you doing this morning?
I'm wonderful. How are you, sir?
Well, you notice your introduction was the on regular or the regular on regular?
Yes, and that's why I'm laughing at you.
Well, actually, there's a reason for that. You've been campaigning throughout the state of Georgia in a contested election. I think they call that, what kind of election do they call the one that you're in?
It's a special election. It's a jungle primary here in Georgia.
It's a jungle primary that includes people from every party trying to get a piece of the action. Mm-hmm. And I see there's some numbers that are going around. Before we get started, it's amazing that Biden is actually leading by 5 or 6 points in Georgia. What does that mean?
I don't know. You know, I'm not one to follow polls. I really don't like polls because I've never been polled. So, you know, for them to come up with these, you know, this overview that he's leading, I'm telling you, I traveled around the great state of Georgia. And when I tell you, I have never seen so many Trump signs. And every time I saw him, I hit the gas.
Well,
I don't know if I believe that in, you know.
Well, I think I believe the polls, but what's interesting is that I'm going to tell you something in politics is that signs don't mean all that much, you know. But anyhow, how is your race going?
So far, so good. You know, it's starting to heat up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 21 candidates in this race. We have Democrats, Republicans, Independent, Libertarian, write-ins. You know, we got all kinds of stuff in this race, and I think it's a great race to be in. You know, 21 candidates. It's a candidate in this race for everybody.
Right now, I notice I've been following a lot of your videos. You've been going around talking to people throughout Georgia. What have you learned about your state?
How underserved so many of my communities are. Traveling around South Georgia is real disheartening because the further away you get from the metro areas like Atlanta, Macon, you know, as you start to get deeper and deeper into South Georgia, there's limited access to the internet, you know, just a basic necessity. You know, that's where we live now is in this virtual world. And for these communities to not have access to the internet and even cell phone service in some of these areas is really choppy. So just the access to our rural communities is disheartening. I went into Talbot County, and they don't even have they don't have a hospital. They don't have a grocery store, Egberto. How can an entire county not have a grocery store, a hospital? They have to go to neighboring counties to eat and for services.
And you know what is very interesting? What is very interesting is that when you look at that reality, what happens is political parties can take advantage of that, whether in a good form or a bad form. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing is, I think Trump and his cabal are able to say to those people that you're seeing, who you know the policies that you support are better in line with giving them access to success, giving them access to healthcare, giving them access to grocery stores, etc. You actually know that those same people, or most of them that you're going through, I imagine are not necessarily fond of, let's say, the left side of the aisle.
Yeah, you know, some of these communities, you know, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, I guess, you know, but
now you've spoken to a lot of these people. To what is it that is missing for the average politician out there to go out and really let these people know what's really causing their angst, what's really causing the conditions that they're in? Again, I'm asking you this because you are all over the state, and a lot of politicians don't get a chance to do that. They stay in their cities where there's a bulk of the votes. And that's why all those rural people are just left open, because, you know, they're open for whoever tells them what they want to hear.
Yeah, you know, and I'm just, you know, going into these rural areas, I felt so welcomed, you know, going into these areas because so few politicians do travel into these remote areas, into these places where you might get 25 votes, but those 25 voices mean something to me, and I hear them. So I felt so welcome, and they were, they talked about how things need to change. A lot of these areas, they don't have jobs. They don't have a whole lot of opportunities. They don't even have a whole lot of hope, Egberto.
Now, one of the questions is people would always ask, why do they stay there? Is it that they don't have the ability to leave? Why do they stay and not, let's say, go where there's more opportunity?
That's home, and home is where your heart is. So you're asking people to leave their homes and their families and all that they know. That's a hard ask, and we have to just provide these services that they need. Like I said, in Talbot County, not having a grocery store. There's people that live there. It doesn't have to be a major chain, but I mean, we could have some grocery stores in this area. And I think this is where politicians should be sure to bring those businesses and work to bring business and jobs and opportunities to these areas. It's so disheartening as you travel, as I traveled in these, like I said, these remote areas, to see these people that love where they live and they want to stay where they are. They just want access to resources like the rest of the state.
Now, interestingly, the politicians have all these kinds of things that they do, resource zones or all these kind of enhanced zones that they would create, but somehow that never percolates all the way down to the rural areas. And even the people who these people in rural areas generally support don't seem to have any interest in providing them anything other than saying, be mad at those people out there in the cities who are getting everything.
Yeah, we just have a lot of work to do, Egberto. Georgia, that's why I'm glad to be running. I'm glad that I'm on this ballot. Kelly Loeffler has to go. I mean, she doesn't know Georgia. I'm Georgia grown. I'm Georgia bred. I'm Georgia. I grew up in the country. I lived in the city, and now I live in an even bigger city. So I know Georgia, and I'm able to relate, and I'm able to hear, Georgians in a different way. Kelly doesn't get this at all. She really doesn't.
Now, based on what you're seeing now, we know locally what really has to get done. There's a whole lot of candidates running. There's just 3 candidates in your particular race. That you would think it's only 3 candidates running in your race based on what you see in the news. Mm-hmm. I saw a couple of things that you said where the people that are voting for you said, I am voting for you because I read, or I'm voting for you because I did my homework.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, big money buys media. And this is why what you're doing, Egberto, is so important. Why what we do, David and I, every Saturday at 11 a.m. here in Georgia with our broadcast, is because we have to have real voices. If you can buy the media, you can pay. You're buying the narrative. You're sucking all the air out of the room. So yeah, it looks like there's 3 candidates, but there's 8 quote unquote Democrats in this race. Actually, 2 of them, Egberto, it's 8 in number, but really it's 6 because 2 of them we don't know who they are. So really, it's 6 viable candidates in this race.
And the others are probably there to make sure the numbers are split, which is a standard technique everybody actually, it's usually done on the right side of the aisle. Now, what do you think about the current election in general?
I'm watching. I'm still, I want Joe and Kamala to come down and get it right with Georgians. I want them to come down and get it right with Black people. So I'm still watching. I haven't voted yet, but of course I will be. Early voting.
I know you will be voting.
Yes. Early voting just started here in Georgia on Monday, so I will be voting. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Now, I covered what's going on in Georgia. I think it's what's a big county? Not the biggest county. I think Atlanta is a 4th.
Fulton, Gwinnett,
DeKalb. And I mean, the lines were ridiculous. I mean, there are some people who stayed 11 hours in the line to actually vote. That should happen nowhere in America, and you have to sit down and wonder why. But then again, I think we know why, right?
Yeah, Georgia. Yeah, voter suppression is real. Like this is how Georgia plays the game. and we know it. I'm hopeful that people will at least, you know, if you can't stand in that line or you don't want to stand in that line, get your ballots mailed to you. There's drop boxes at these polling locations. So get your ballot mailed to you, fill it out, and drop it off at the polling location. I mean, those lines, I actually went out the morning of Monday morning, and I literally saw a line that was at least a mile long.
Right. That means that was one of those 11-hour lines. It is kind of crazy that we like to preach democracy and voting, and we make it so difficult for people to vote in certain areas. Let's be clear now. It's only,
I don't anticipate waiting up here where I live at all.
You will be able to walk in and vote. I think that should be criminal. Now, today I'm going to be playing a video of the SCOTUS here in the Supreme Court justice hearing on that's occurring in the Senate right now. And it's interesting because what you see is that this judge, she looks meek, she looks innocent, she looks like somebody with compassion. She has 5 kids of her own and 2 Black kids that she adopted from Haiti. And so she has this perfil, this profile that gives the impression that she's well-rounded and that she would be an empathetic type judge. And when you hear the words come out of her mouth, would you know that she supported that a felon, she would refuse to accept that a felon who has paid their price should have their right to vote restored. But a felon can get a gun. It is almost like Texas. You go to school and you get an ID to go to school, state-issued ID. You can't use that to vote. But if you go get a state-issued ID to own a gun, you can vote.
This is America.
Welcome to America. Welcome to America. So tell me a little bit something about what are your plans going forward before we close this out?
Well, yeah, I'm hopeful to. I wasn't going to do any more like hard travel because I've been trying to be very strategic with these last 20 days, but I got an opportunity to do some really get back out there and hit the road hard one more time. So maybe by this weekend, we're trying to work out the logistics. I may be hitting that trail hard all over again. So be on the lookout, Georgia. I'm still here. I'm still running. There's 21 candidates in this race, and I am your candidate for the United States Senate.
I hope when you see those miles a few thousand feet long, you have your paperwork ready to give these people, because while you can't do it 100 meters before in front of the thing, given that the lines are so long.
Start at the end, right? Work my way up.
Well, start a mile back and work your way up and say, hey, they don't want this, but this is what we need to get done. Anyhow, tell us a little bit about your show and what you're going to cover this weekend.
Awesome. Yeah. So David and I will be talking to, as you were talking about, a felon, a gentleman who was they locked him up and threw away the key. So we'll be talking to him on this Saturday about his time and how he was able to get out and what that was like for him and he and his wife. So that is this Saturday. You can find us every Saturday at 11 a.m. David and I, as we lend our broadcast to issues that affect Georgians and affect us around the nation.
Tamara Shealey, candidate for senator in Georgia. Actually, you guys are going to give us 2 new senators. Mm-hmm. And so far, it seems like there may be 2 new Democratic senators. So have a good one. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right, Tamara.
Thank you, sir.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.